Outside of the big 5 national parks, Utah is home to 8 national monuments. You might think the state would be as proud of its national monuments as it is of its parks. That's not the case. In fact, the state of Utah is currently suing the federal government to try and make its newest national monuments smaller. First, what's the difference? Well, according to the National Park Service, national monuments are generally set up to preserve one natural resource instead of many, so they tend to be smaller, but the biggest difference is how they're made. National parks require an act of Congress, and national monuments just require a president to name them. And that's where the trouble started in Utah. In 1996, President Bill Clinton named a huge chunk of federal land in Kane and Garfield counties part of the Grand Staircase Escalante National Monument. And the locals weren't thrilled. It may be a sign of how unpopular that move was here in Utah that Clinton made the announcement from another state at the Grand Canyon in Arizona. Many in Utah weren't thrilled that the monument, which is about the size of Delaware, closed off development and a huge chunk of coal reserves. Monument land, they argued, had too many rules, and just one president naming it was federal overreach. Opponents have argued that locals know better how to manage the land than the federal government. The lands belonged to the feds before the monument designation, but the monument comes with much more oversight. Environmentalists argue the tourism that results from the monument designation more than offsets any losses that the locals will suffer, but at least for the monuments named over the past 30 years. But leaders in the counties affected by the monument and state government don't agree with that. The same dynamics played out when President Barack Obama named the Bears Ears National Monument in 2016. The Obama administration consulted several local tribes, and the designation was meant in part to protect several delicate archaeological sites. But again, local governments and the state of Utah were furious. And when Donald Trump became president, he made good on a campaign promise by axing the size of both the Bears Ears and the Grand Staircase Escalante National Monuments by millions of acres. Then came President Joe Biden, who restored the monuments back to their original size. Right now, the state of Utah is suing the federal government, arguing that the Antiquities Act, which was passed in 1906, giving the president the right to name monuments, was never meant to cover that much land. Leaders, including Governor Spencer Cox, have said that they expect the Supreme Court to have the final say on the issue. Now, whatever happens to Bears Ears, Grand Staircase Escalante, and the Antiquities Act, Utah's national monuments are an amazing place to hike, climb, camp, and sightsee. Utah's other national monuments are all over 90 years old, and the locals have more or less learned to live with them. Those are Timpanogos Cave, which was established in 1922, Rainbow Bridge in 1910, Natural Bridges in 1904, Hub and Weep in 1923, Dinosaur in 1915, and Cedar Breaks in 1933.